image comes to mind when you think about God's creation? Do you think big, like a forest, maybe stars or galaxies? What about weather events? Now, what about something small like a beetle or a butterfly? We invite you to think about God's creation from many different angles. Try thinking of yourself as a small insect pollinating a beautiful flower. How does that feel? And now think of yourself as a huge oak tree, giving shelter to birds and animals and shade to friends on a picnic. How cool is that? And that little journey is just a glimpse into the impetus for this video series, the feeling of interconnectedness with all other life forms on Mother Earth. We're calling this video series Connected in God's Creation, and we're exploring ways of responding to God's call to care for creation. We acknowledge the mess we have made and allowed to continue for far too long, and we need to be part of the solution. If you'd like to record your thoughts as you listen to this material, please feel free to pause the video and get something to take notes with. Welcome back. This series was created by Lutherans and Episcopalians in the Delaware and Maryland area who are eager to share the vision, the wisdom, and the call to action that is the Earth Charter. The Earth Charter was crafted by visionaries with input from thousands of individuals and organizations around the world almost 22 years ago. This is a picture of it on my kitchen counter. And while it is only 4 pages long, albeit very small font, it is huge in its intent. It was written for the collective we. It is a secular document, but it is in lockstep with the 10 Commandments, the Golden Rule, and all of Jesus Christ's teachings. And it has been endorsed by the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, the Episcopal Church, and many, many other religions around the world. The Earth Charter's goal is to inspire a sense of responsibility for all beings, regardless of their importance to humans, for creatures now and importantly, in the future. The Earth Charter is intended for all individuals, organizations, both for-profit and non-profit, and governments. There's no one left out of its intentions. It offers a recipe for successful living on Mother Earth. It reminds humans that while we are not more important than trees or waterways or kangaroos or butterflies, we do have an outsized impact on other life forms. And our ways need to change if humans are going to exist for longer than just a few more generations. The Earth Charter has 61 objectives, which are grouped into 16 principles and further grouped into 4 pillars, which we will list now. Number 1, we must respect and care for all plants, animals, and people. Number 2, we must strive for ecological integrity. Number 3, we need social and economic justice. And number 4, we have an imperative to strive for democracy, nonviolence, and peace. This video will cover aspects of the first pillar, respect and care for the community of life. Please enjoy.
Well, hello, beloveds. My name is Gary Dittman, and I've been asked, and I'm grateful to participate in this project that we're working on together in celebration of the Earth Charter. And the area of that I've been asked to give attention to is care of community, respect and care for community. And so let me just share a little about who I am. I am at Amazing Grace Lutheran Church here in East Baltimore. I've been here since 2009, so I don't know how many years that is, around 12 years, I guess, getting up on 13. I moved here from North Carolina, where I was in ministry at Emmanuel Lutheran Church in Lincolnton, North Carolina for 20 years. I have sort of, I went to seminary in Chicago at Lutheran School of Theology, and have sort of did my internship in Milwaukee with Mick Roschke and Pastor Joe Ellwanger, both at separate congregations. It was a 2-point internship. Both of these men taught me much about loving Jesus and loving neighbor. And both congregations were deeply immersed in communities that were distressed and underserved in Central City, Milwaukee. And Joe actually had it sort of awakened within me a stronger sense of my desire to care for neighbor. As Joe worked with Dr. King and was in Birmingham when 16th Street Baptist Church was bombed. So Joe was deeply engaged and immersed in the civil rights movement and the healing and transformation of lives and the working for justice in our world. And so from these two, I learned much. And even in the congregation, though I was in a small town in North Carolina, Emmanuel was deeply immersed in community ministry and engagement and partnerships. And in fact, and that sort of happened, I believe, by one of the former pastors at Emmanuel Lutheran Church, Schomburg Setzer, in the 60s, had preached a sermon on why, he had written his dissertation on why segregation was correct. And he preached a sermon about why he was wrong from the pulpit. And that led to a tremendous split in the church. 40% of the congregation left. The KKK burned a cross in the parsonage lawn. And Emmanuel sort of became a congregation that was deeply immersed in working for creating a community, the beloved community envisioned by our Lord. So that's a little about me, more than you maybe want. I'm married to Karen, my wife. I was trying to figure out exactly how many years. We were married in 1988, and she is a neonatal nurse practitioner here at Johns Hopkins Medical Center. So I guess moving to the next step, content. What can I teach you? I hope this will lead to conversation and sort of stirring the pot of how the Spirit might be leading your community in terms of ways that they can be more deeply immersed and engage the neighborhood where you're serving. When I arrived here at Amazing Grace in 2009, Pastor Karen Brow had been a part. The church is actually 3 congregations that consolidated in 1996. In fact, we're celebrating 25 years of ministry, giving thanks to God. And so, but the congregation, Pastor Karen had left over a year earlier, and the congregation was discerning, like, what's ahead look like. Like a lot of churches, we were having a lot of problems with finances. We were seemingly always short. And yet we were also doing more outreach ministry and connecting with the community beyond the church. And those two things felt to be out of sync. Like, if we're short of finances, how can we do this ministry beyond ourselves? And so when I arrived, we began as a congregation to discern, were we going to be here in 5 years? Were we going to be here in 1 year? Like, did we believe that? And in fact, I remember very clearly at a council meeting, we had a board up where we said, how should we, if we're going to be here? Everyone said, yep, we're going to be here in 5 years. Well, how are we going to be here in 5 years? Are we going to contract our ministries? or are we going to try to like move the pastor to halftime so that we can continue to do things? I mean, how's this going to look? And everyone had a sticker, and that sticker we could either say we'll go to halftime or quarter time or three-quarter time, or we'll stay wide open in the work that we're doing. And all the council members together discerned that we needed to stay wide open and keep doing, and that God would provide a way. And it was a very faithful thing, even for me, because I tend to like to have things a little bit more structured, and I don't like to run in the hole. It's very stressful to feel like we're spending money we don't have. But the congregation council basically said, we believe and trust that God has called us here for this time and this purpose. And if we end up closing, then God has another plan. And that was a faith statement for me at that moment. And it gave me the courage to sort of dream and look ahead. And so that's what we began to do. We dreamed and we talked about our values. And basically we came up with a set of values through congregation conversations and through a retreat. And these values, basically, they're just 5 simple things, but they were what we used to chart our future together. And so the first thing is that we believe that Jesus is Lord and our Savior. And these are our guiding principles. The second thing is we believe in radical hospitality. And for you that don't know, Amazing Grace has community gardens. It has a wellness center with pantry and food ministry. That was all kind of happening even when I arrived. And we've certainly expanded it since I've arrived. But the way we talked about radical hospitality is having carrot relationships instead of radish relationships. And for you gardeners, you know very well that carrots sort of grow these real long, deep roots, right? And radishes are little bulb roots. And we're eager in our community of faith to grow deep, long root relationships, meaning we don't want you to just say you're fine if you're not fine. We want to know what's going on in each other's lives and grow that. The third thing is we want to devotionalize every activity. So what we recognize is that not everyone that we serve, not everyone who comes and gets food, not everyone who comes to the gardens and volunteers, maybe even a Christian, but certainly may not come to worship with us. And so what we decided to do is every activity that we have, we try to create a way to connect people to the holy. And we do that with simple ways: a reading of a poem, a prayer, a check-in. And of course, all of these things that I'm talking about, we're longing to do more of since pandemic and since a lot of our activities have been curtailed. But we're starting to move back into this arena, and certainly devotionalizing our activities together is one of our guiding principles. And then we operate from a stance of abundance. And that's counterintuitive, and it doesn't feel like it makes sense at all. But really, it is a trusting in God's providence. The way we put it here at Amazing Grace, God shows off all the time. God just keeps showing off in ways that we can't imagine, in people reaching out to be present in ways that we couldn't have even guessed could occur. And but we see God at work and trust that God will provide for us abundantly. And the last value and guiding principle is that we're agile and open to where the Spirit leads. If God leads us somewhere, we immediately go. And that's a really valuable trait, I must say, having come sometimes where it's harder to move. It's great. I'm grateful to be in a place where people feel the Spirit has led. They hesitate. There's no hesitation, rather, to move forward and trust that God is leading us there. So I guess for my first interactive activity that I would ask of you, I would wonder if your congregation sort of has some core values or guiding principles, maybe a vision statement. And what does that look like for your congregation? And if you don't have it, and I'll say not lots of congregations that I've talked to maybe don't have that. They may have a mission statement, but they don't have some guiding principles about how they operate, how they choose to do their mission. And if you don't, what might you do as a congregation to help that happen? So I'm going to pause now the Zoom in the recording, and then we'll resume after you've had a chance to talk. Okay, thanks. So I'm recording now in Fellowship Hall, and my focus area is respect and care for the community, and I even want to say with the community. All of our churches are in different spots and different contexts. So Amazing Grace, we're in East Baltimore. We're actually near Johns Hopkins main campus hospital. We're in a disinvested in, underserved community. For some of you who might be have read a number of things, we're a redlined community. We've had a lot of challenges with poverty, challenges with the opioid epidemic. There's a lot of violence in our community, and a lot of people have been impacted deeply by loss and grief and trauma. Relationships with law enforcement are not great. And so our context isn't your context, right? And so when I talked about those core values, those guiding principles for your congregation, you have to discern, you know, how to apply those in your own context. For us, I'm going to just share a few ways, and maybe hopefully it will be helpful. So as we, you know, develop these core values and this way of doing ministry together, we began to change the framework by which we viewed people who were neighbors beyond the church. Gratefully, Amazing Grace is a congregation that has a number of people who live in the neighborhood, worship at the congregation. I know there are churches that are in neighborhoods where there are not people who are part of the worshiping community in the neighborhood, but we sort of that line is a little bit fluid for us, which is great. So it lessens the us and them dynamic to the we dynamic, right? And I think what's healthy is for us to think about the we dynamic, which is why I changed the word for respect and care for the community to respect and care with the community. That the values, I think, are respecting and caring for one another. And we do that in myriad of ways. But Amazing Grace, first of all, discerned that our space was kind of sucky. Not that it wasn't functional, not that it didn't get the job done, but it wasn't particularly welcoming. It didn't make you feel good to be in. And so I'm trying to, part of why I wanted to bring you to the Fellowship Hall is because this is the space where we've just recently resumed Bread for the Journey community meal. And you can see here, this is a mural that was created by Micah student, and it's the River of Life, right? And then here in the space, we have round tables where people can gather, where we can be together. And there's tons of art. Panka Brown is a Baltimore artist who's done remarkable things, and his art is here behind me. I wish I could get it to not be glary. I don't know that it's not going to be glary. This is some of Panka's art. There's art done by community kids in the neighborhood. Let's see here. I'm sorry, I know this always makes me dizzy when I'm on a Zoom call and someone's walking around. I'm like, ooh, it's freaking me out. And over here is a love mosaic piece of art by another Baltimore artist. And so all of this is to say, we want when people come into this space, we want them to feel like when you come into your own home, and it's good to be home after a long day. Oh my gosh, that's kind of the goal for the space here. We want people to know that they're welcome and that it's our space together, right? Yes, you're a guest, but you're also a piece of what makes this space special, because your presence makes it special. And there's a lot of people in our neighborhood who are dealing with trauma. And so what we did is we interviewed neighbors. We had conversations with people. We asked, what will make your life better? What will help you heal? What would benefit you and your family? And through those conversations, there was just a simple survey sheet. People who came to the soup kitchen, people who came, to the community meal. I'm trying to change my language here, right? Soup kitchen sort of has a directional flow, like we serve you, whereas a community meal, we break bread together. So people who came to the community meal, people who came to the pantry, people who were a part of after school programming. We asked those family members, what will make your life better? And how can Amazing Grace create programs that are going to make it easier on you and your family, that are going to help you heal? And then we took those surveys and prioritized based on answers what we thought we should be focusing on. And initially, what that looked like was after school programming, and a series of wellness classes that we call the Revolution Within, which is a trauma informed series of classes to sort of help people heal. And those things included things like yoga or mindfulness meditation or cooking classes, group acupuncture, creative writing and storytelling, art. So we and most of these courses were 6 to 8 weeks long. And of course, again, pandemics curtailed some of that, but we're trying to gradually begin to start that again. And that these courses did a number of things. First of all, they allowed us to be together as neighbors in the community. And what that does, as you know, when you're sitting down at a table breaking bread or working on a project or digging in the dirt in the gardens, you chat. You get to hear one another's stories. You learn things about life and others' lives that you maybe haven't experienced or even heard of. So it builds community cohesion. And let me share that one of the times I knew that it was working, because in neighborhoods where there's a lot of trauma, it's hard to build trust. It's often hard, and particularly in the church, because the church can re-traumatize people at times. But when I knew that the building community was happening is when someone at the pantry shared that their partner had been murdered during the weekend, and it was a terrible moment, and everyone was in grief. There was great support in the room, in the space. And then someone said, look, if you don't have a funeral home, this funeral home will help you in financing things, because money's tight. People don't have a lot of it. And then someone else said, look, if you bring me a picture of your boyfriend, I will make I want to make you a gift using that picture and bring it back to you. And then someone else said, if you just need to talk. Now this is amazing, because these are neighbors who simply have connected through the food ministry, through the Client Choice Food Pantry. That means people shop for food instead of us just giving them food. But the benefit is that lives were being touched, and we were growing the capacity to know that we could touch other people's lives too. So it's remarkable and humbling and a blessing. So this is leaning into our call or our purpose, our programming. Now, the big thing I haven't covered yet is funding. Well, how in the world are y'all funding all this? And we do, I will share that we do an amazing lot with an amazing little, and that gets back to one of our guiding principles, right? God provides abundantly. So God provides abundantly by providing instructors that want to offer their services free, yoga instructors, group acupuncturists, but then also we work to find grants to support the ministries, to support the programs, to support the classes. The cooking class, for example, 5 times a feast uses, we cook healthy food, we cook 6 dinners, eat 1 dinner together, and take 5 dinners home. $15 is the budget for that, and it's also healthy food. So how in the world do we get money to do that? Well, we write grants. We look around to organizations that are wanting to provide health and nutrition in that case, who are wanting to build community, who are wanting to help neighbors like us reach other neighbors who are in difficult circumstances. I recognize our context is very specific, and I know that you're going to go, well, where are grants for our congregation? I assure you, there are organizations, just like the Wellness Center next door. You know, it's wraparound services. We do as many things as we can by partnering with as many people as we can. And I want to save some of that for next segment. So I guess as we seek to walk with our neighbors, as we seek to respect and be in community together, listening is the biggest piece. And so that's my question for your next conversation now. How does your congregation listen to neighbors around them? How does that look? What's that? How does that come to be? Is it structured? Is it informal? Does it need more structure? Talk about that with each other. All right, beloveds, welcome back. Wanted to bring you to the sanctuary, and I'm wearing my hat because the heat's not on, and it's chilly. So I hope you've had some good conversations about ways to engage neighbors, to be neighbors together, and sort of to clarify how your church's ministry might be intentionally engaged with your community and your neighborhood. I wanted to just share a few stories as I try to wind things down a little bit about how growing into our values isn't always easy. I think when we began this process, when we adopted these 5 guiding principles, you know, Jesus is Lord and Savior, amen. That's not too hard, right? We can all affirm our faith. But then radical hospitality. I think here in the sanctuary, I think of one Sunday when a young man came in and he was wearing his ball cap. And one of our dear senior members who still drives to worship, she's 102 years old. She's amazing. She's gifted. She loves this church and loves her Lord. But she insisted that he take his cap off. And he wouldn't take his cap off. And for her piety, it wasn't respectful for him to leave his hat on, right? So he left. He came into church, he rode his bike, carried his bike up, brought it in the narthex, came into go to worship, but Miss Louise, sorry, I didn't mean to speak her name, but she and I love each other dearly. So she wanted him to remove his hat, and he wouldn't. So when he wouldn't, and when she didn't let up, when she didn't relent, he left. So after worship, we talked. Ms. Louise and I talked about, what does radical hospitality mean? I mean, do we want this boy, this young man, to be present in worship, or do we not? Do we want his heart to be touched by the love of Jesus? Or is it more important that his hat be off? Because I'll tell you the truth, and I told her this too. He had nappy hair, and he didn't want to be embarrassed in worship. So it was more important for him to wear a hat and have his life and his heart touched by the love of God than it was for him to not wear that hat. So those are the rubs, right? The tensions we rub into at times. I'll share another one. We operate from a stance of abundance. So once we had adopted these values, these guiding principles for our congregation, I told the church, look, the parable of the sower is coming up. This was to the council. I said, the parable of the sower, I want to give away $600 that Sunday to the congregation. I want to give out envelopes with $10, $15, and $20 in each envelope. And the only rule is, when you receive an envelope, you have to be willing to share how you use the money. That's the only rule. And I'll tell you, we had some people who were really happy to be visiting that day, right? But so here's what was so lovely. So at Amazing Grace, we have this time for testimony and sharing at the end of worship. It's a time to share announcements, to share if someone has something special or needs a special prayer request. It's whatever people desire. And the only thing is they introduce themselves. So as the weeks proceeded after this disbursement of $600, many people came forward with many stories, and it revealed just how God provides and the work that God was doing in the world. One young woman took a friend who was going through a divorce, and she just went out for coffee and breakfast and listened and prayed with her. Another person took the money, bought ingredients, and baked sweet potato pies that she sold. And then she took the money from what she sold, bought more ingredients, baked more sweet potato pies that she sold. And then she took the money, bought ingredients, baked more sweet potato pies that she sold. And then she donated at the end of the month the money to the soup kitchen. So her 20 had become 85. Another man loaned his money to someone, and then he charged him interest and gave the church back a little more than the 15 that he had received. One person who was unhoused, who lived at Helping Up Mission, noted that people there were having a hard time reading the King James Version of the Bible that was available. And so he shared that he was planning to buy Bibles, New International Version Bibles, for the shelter. 3 other people were so excited about that. They gave him their money, and he was able to buy 40 Bibles for the Helping Up Mission shelter, so that people could more easily read God's word. So all of these things, I won't lie to you, the council was skeptical about giving $600 away. Yet, when we saw the abundance of how God used those resources to further God's reign, to touch lives, our mission at Amazing Grace is connecting people with the life-changing power of Jesus Christ, to see how many people were connected to that life-changing power through this seed money that was distributed far and wide. God is good. So I will, what I would say to you is that it isn't an off-on switch. We still sometimes have challenges. Um, what I wanted to share about the Wellness Center and the agility. Um, we said we'll be agile and open to where the Spirit leads. We had a social work intern one year, gratefully, and she and our Chesapeake Conservation Corps, we had an environmental intern. They said, can we tear the walls down in the upstairs area of the former pantry, which is now the Wellness Center? And I thought, oh my goodness, what a great idea, right? There's 3 bedrooms that are kind of small up there right now. What if we tear the walls down and make one big room? So here's how God did. First of all, it only took 9 weeks from the time that it was suggested to the time the walls got torn down. We did an asbestos check, a lead test, an engineer to make sure the roof wasn't going to fall when we tore the walls down. And that quickly, the walls came down. It was remarkable. I've never seen a congregation move so swiftly. Once the walls were down, we repaired the walls. Suddenly we had a meeting space. We don't have tons of resources. We don't have money to share with the community, but we have space. And suddenly organizations and groups began to use that space. So, NAMI has support groups for caregivers of people with mental illness. We did sewing classes. We did some of our TRW, the Revolution Within classes I was sharing with you about. We currently have a Suboxone clinic on Mondays, which is run by the Behavioral Health Leadership Institute to assist people who are wanting to move away from addiction of heroin. And doctor and the nurse come every Monday and manage 35 people in that situation, neighbors. We have beyond the food ministry, the Client Choice Pantry. We also try to use that space as we have a diaper pantry, which is a place for young parents to come and pick up free diapers for their children. So by removing those walls, creating a small kitchenette, it's opened up the possibility of many, many partners. And again, when we partner with organizations, they are to reinforce the mission of bringing healing and wholeness into the neighborhood. And we sign a covenant with each organization that partners with us, understanding that when they offer services, they'll be free of charge, or there'll be a way for people who can't afford those services to have scholarship funds. And United Workers had, during this pre-pandemic, had monthly East Side committee meetings there. It's just opened up a pathway for many groups, organizations, and neighbors, even individuals who want to perhaps have a birthday party for their children but don't have room in their own. It's a way for us, and we don't charge. We never charge. We do ask if people would like to contribute to the cost of keeping the building open, the heat, the air, the maintenance. We would welcome contributions, but none of that is assumed or expected, and a fair number don't. But but by building relationships, it creates a pathway for us to be collaborative in reaching people and healing the neighborhood. So I guess as you begin to think about your own ways of creatively engaging the neighborhood and your own congregation, like I suppose my sending exercise would be what creative avenues. So if I'm hoping, I know some of you have to create values, right? Some of you have to create your guiding principles, but some of you probably have that in place already. As you respect and care for your community and with your community, are there things that you can do with your congregation to embody those values, right? To do things to ensure. I don't remember if I don't think I told you another thing we did that allowed us was one Palm Sunday. We went door knocking during the service. Basically, instead of progressing into the church with the palms, we took a group of palms along with a sheet and we went around and gave out palms and asked if there was anything that they would like to pray about today, anything we could pray with you about today. And so it was another pathway for us to connect with neighbors, and particularly those neighbors who weren't in church for worship that Sunday, and to just let them know that Amazing Grace is here, and it's our desire to make things available for your family. At the same time we asked about that prayer, we gave out invitational brochures about the worship during Holy Week, and also about classes, offerings from the Revolution Within that maybe their family would be interested in, free of charge. So, all right, beloveds, I hope this has been helpful, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Certainly, if you would like to connect sometime or talk further, I would be very open to having deeper conversations about ways for the community to benefit from the ministry of your congregation and the ministry we all share. All right. Have a great one. Peace.